I'd like to share with you just a few slides as context. By the way, here's our webinar information in case you need to get in touch with any of us. Here's our Twitter tag today, Lead Simple. You can get us that way. Please feel free to tweet along, and then you see the different tweet handles of each one of the authors that are going to be on today's webinar. To set this up for you, I want to share a couple of quotes for you. First is from Benjamin Disraeli. He said that opportunity is more powerful even than conquerors and prophets. If you think of that, he's saying that opportunity is something that really engages people. It motivates people to move forward towards worthwhile aims. Whole migrations of people left the shores of their safe environment in pursuit of opportunity to find a better life when they came to whatever country that they landed on now. I mean, the immigrant experience is the experience of many Americans, for example. In my own family, they were in search of a better life, leaving the shores of their homeland in order to come to America in search of opportunity. Opportunity is motivating and engaging, so much so that Albert Einstein said that all that's valuable in human society depends upon the opportunity for development accorded the individual. In other words, the most important thing is, are we giving people opportunities to grow and develop and evolve and progress? And if you're in a leadership role, it's really what your responsibility is to do. So tonight we're going to share stories with you about the leaders who impacted the leadership authors by creating opportunities for them to grow and develop. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Becky, and she's going to introduce our first speaker. Each speaker will have 5 minutes to share their story.
Hey, thanks, Bill. I am so excited to introduce Jessie Stoner. Jessie Stoner is actually a leader who's opened a lot of doors of opportunity for me in my journey. She's the founding partner of C-Point Center for Collaborative Leadership. She's a former nonprofit executive director, a former senior consultant with the Ken Blanchard Companies, and she's worked with leaders in hundreds of organizations worldwide for more than 20 years. Jessie is the author of Full Steam Ahead, Unleash the Power of Vision in Your Company and Your Life, and writes a wonderful blog at cpointcenter.com. So, Jessie, I'm thrilled to introduce you and looking forward to hearing what you have to share tonight.
Thanks, Becky, and thank you also, Bill, for inviting me to join this fabulous panel. I'm looking forward to hearing other people's stories also. One of the things that struck me is that sometimes leaders open doors that you didn't even know were there in the first place, which is the case with me. I was a senior consultant with the Ken Blanchard Companies early on when the company was young and still developing training programs based on situational leadership, which is the core of the company. And my doctoral studies is in team development and visionary leadership. So I was focusing on the team's applications, and there was plenty of work for me as a consultant helping leaders and teams and companies creating a shared vision, even though it wasn't the specific focus of the company. And I have to say I love situational leadership because it's about helping people reach their potential. But I had many conversations with Ken over the years that I felt that something important was missing, which is, but where are you going with it? How do you get clarity on where you're going? But in the meantime, I was getting there. I was pretty busy doing the vision work, and I really had an opportunity over the years to continue to refine the process and really understand how to help people create a shared vision. And I had been part of the company for about 10 years when one day I picked up my voicemail messages, and Ken had opened a door for me that I didn't even know was there. He left me a voicemail message inviting me to write a book with him on vision. And now that would probably, for a lot of people be a just fabulous opportunity, but I have to tell you, it was not on my radar. I'm not a writer. I'm a practitioner. I facilitate and consult. And any writing that I had done up until that point was in support of that work. And for me, writing a book was a totally different matter. And to be honest, I was intimidated. And it took me 2 months to answer them. I had to really think about it. And I finally called Ken. I felt like I was being rude, and I explained my concerns. First of all, my children were young. I was really busy. I was juggling trying to be a mom and also working full-time. Ken's style of writing is using a parable. Mine is to explain ideas and give information in an organized manner. And also, this was the hard part for me, was that when I was in 7th grade, my English teacher basically told me that I was not a good writer, and no matter how hard I tried, I was never going to be a good writer because I worked so hard, and the highest grade I ever got was a B+. And I finally believed her, and I stopped enjoying writing, and it was just basically something that I had to do to communicate ideas, but it wasn't the fun part of my work. And as I told Ken this, he did 5 things. I thought about this as I was thinking about what I wanted to say tonight. He listened and he heard my concerns. He acknowledged the ones that were realistic. I mean, it's true. I was incredibly busy. He gently questioned my belief that I wasn't a good writer. He didn't beat me over the head with it, but he questioned it. He reaffirmed his confidence in me and his desire to work with me, and he didn't pressure me. He patiently waited at the door. So he opened the door, but he didn't push me through it. It was incredibly respectful, and he let me make my own decision. And we did write the book. And surprisingly, it was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had. And I won't go into all the details, but it just was not what I was expecting. And the most striking thing about Ken in this was, besides just the way his genuine respect and unconditional acceptance, is his total lack of ego involvement. When the book was finished and ready for publication, I discovered that we were going to have to wait 8 months because Ken had another book in the lineup that was coming out, and the publisher wanted to space them out. And I was really disappointed. I was hot to try. The book's done. I want to get it out. And Ken opened another door for me. He spoke with a publisher, and they offered to publish it right away under my own name, with Ken writing the foreword. And to me, that's just incredible. And this time I decided not to go through the door. That I thought about it, and Ken had supported me. He'd been there every step of the way, and he set his ego aside. Certainly I could set mine aside, and I decided to wait. And long and the short of it is that Full Steam Ahead was published in 2003. It became one of the top-selling books of Barrett Kohler Publishers, selling over 250,000 copies. It's been translated into 22 languages, and in 2001, the publisher asked us to update it and write a second edition, which is actually an honor because they only do that with bestsellers. So being an author of a bestseller, you might say, well, that's the door that I went through, is I got to be that. But that's actually the ego part. The real door that Ken opened for me was that he gave me an opportunity to help so many more people understand what a real vision is and how to create one, and to make a difference for so many more people than I ever could as a consultant and a facilitator. And I have to say, at a personal level, that when I went through that door that Ken opened, that 7th grade English teacher turned into a puddle of water in my mind. And it restored not only my confidence in my ability to write, but also my enjoyment. And Becky mentioned that I write a weekly leadership blog, and I am quite certain that I would not be doing it if Ken had not opened that door. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That is such an amazing and powerful story, Jessie. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Next up, we're going to hear from Stephen Snyder. And Stephen is the founder and managing director of the Snyder Leadership Group. Stephen was one of Microsoft's first business unit general manager. He later became the CEO of Net Perceptions, and he was the winner of the 1999 World Technology Award for Commerce. Stephen is also the author of Leadership in the Art of Struggle, How Great Leaders Grow Through Challenge and Adversity, a book that I was thrilled to help launch this spring. And Stephen, we're really looking forward to hearing your story. Just as a reminder, Stephen's Twitter handle's on the slide, and our hashtag for the evening is Lead Simple. Stephen, really looking forward to hearing from you.
Well, thank you, Becky, and thank you, Bill, for inviting me to participate. And wow, Jessie, that was one heck of a story. I don't know how I'm gonna even come anywhere close to the power of your story. The funny-looking guy on your screen right now is Bill Gates, not as he looks today, but as he looked when I knew him in 1985. Now, Bill Gates and Ken Blanchard have very different personalities. Bill was not the warm, fuzzy, thoughtful, respectful, and kind type of visionary, but he was a visionary. He is a visionary. And I think it was through Bill's vision in many respects, watching how he thought among many problems that opened so many of the doors that I'm so grateful for over the years. I was particularly impressed by how Bill could look into the future and envision something to spot the opportunities or avert the problems. And just a couple of very quick examples. I was at an off-site retreat with Bill on Bainbridge Island, which is an island near Seattle. Bill Gates was there, Steve Ballmer, Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft, John Farley, the president, and several other technical gurus. This was 1984, 1985. And Bill held a CD, a compact disc, in his hand at the retreat. And he looked at this, and he said, you know, this can hold 700 megabytes of data. And at the time, of course, the compact disc could only hold music. But through that envisioning, Bill envisioned how that compact disc could be expanded in capabilities and serve as a media or platform to transmit large amounts of data, far larger than we could at through any other medium at that time. And as a result, the CD-ROM industry was born. And so we were able to, for the first time, able to distribute encyclopedias and training materials and videos that we had just didn't have the bandwidth to distribute electronically before that. And from that vision, I realized that this is an art in itself, to be able to spot opportunities, and I attribute that teaching to enable me to spot the opportunity that when NetPerceptions came to being, and these inventors who had invented this technology, a recommendation engine that could recommend things that you might like based on people who are similar to you, recognizing that that was an opportunity and spotting that as an opportunity and seeing that a recommendation engine was something that we would need in the future. And really it was the ability that Bill taught me that opened the door to allow me to see the potential for that new innovation that spurned NetPerceptions and created a recommendation engine that is being used throughout the industry now, including Amazon, to recommend books for you. And kind of one of the ironies of it is now Amazon's recommendation engine is recommending my book, which is kind of a nice meta ending. The second example is how Bill struggled as he transformed the organization of Microsoft into from a functional organization into a general management organization. I was, of course, part of that. But he gave up an old model of leadership in order to make way for a new model that was more adaptive to Microsoft moving forward. Microsoft had had a functional organization for 10 years, and he knew that model was not adaptive for the future, and he struggled over that. It was difficult for him, but he ultimately accepted that, and that paved the way for Microsoft's growth in the 80s, and also really caused me to understand that this struggle is a natural part of leadership, that this struggle is something that all of us go through. And really what Bill taught me was when you embrace the struggle and you can begin to see this new pathway that opens up for you, you get rid of the old model and make way for something new. And that is essentially the platform and the foundation for the book, Leadership and the Art of Struggle. So thank you, Bill, for for helping me open all of these doors that have come after my working with you.
Thanks so much, Stephen. We're excited to welcome next Vicki Halsey, who I actually met for the first time tonight and who is in the hotel room with me as we're presenting this event. Vicki is a speaker and a trainer. She's the Vice President of Applied Learning at the Ken Blanchard Companies, and she's also the author of 2 books, The Hamster Revolution, Stop Info Glut, Reclaim Your Life, and Brilliance by Design. Vicki, it's so wonderful to be with you tonight, and we look forward to hearing your story in just a second.
Thank you so much, Becky and Bill and Jesse and Stephen. What a gift. And all of you on the line, I just feel through the phone your desire to help the world be a better place by stepping into your leadership potential and helping others do the same. So I have an interesting story because, you know, with working with Blanchard 17 years, I get such an opportunity to meet Ken's friends and Margie's friends and, you know, Ken and Margie, who have opened up every door in the world to me. One of the people that I just met on my journey was Colleen Barrett. You see her here on the screen. What a precious individual. But here's sort of an interesting, and as you guys know, Southwest, you know, they're about leading with love. You know, there's the book she wrote and the stock symbol, et cetera, is love. And, you know, before I met Colleen, and here's it, let me just share with you a little background on meeting Colleen, is that, you know, I had helped design our executive MBA program for the Ken Blanchard School of Business at Grand Canyon University. And, you know, she was on our board, and I thought, oh, this is just going to be so great. You know, and I worked very hard to make sure this executive MBA program was everything someone would feel was rigorous and very important. And I feel like, you know, I had spent my life really making sure I had done the rigorous work of creating training programs that, you know, that really help people change their paradigms. One of my favorite quotes is, people don't describe what they see what they can describe. So everything I did was about helping people describe things in such new ways that they could do things in a new way, because they could see, oh, I understand now, I'm this or someone's that, so they are very clear about that. So with Colleen, what was the most incredible thing was every time we have a cohort, so we have 2 different starts a year, but we come together 3 times. And what's fabulous about that is I get to hear her leadership point of view. But even better, I get to see her in action. So, you know, I had this mindset. You kind of had to separate work from pleasure. I sort of had a little bit about that. I sort of had some, who knows where these beliefs came from, but they were there. And so, you know, clients might say, hey, let's go to dinner or let's go to a game or something like this. And I'd be like, no, I can't do that because that's not work. That sounds like I'm doing something that sounds like it might be fun. And heaven forbid we should have fun when we're working. So here's what, that was a little bit of my mindset, you know, not great. But anyhow, but I was having fun, but just, you know, I was very clear about sort of this line of demarcation. Well, so what I learned from Colleen, oh my gosh, the second you meet her, it's like she just embraces you with the goodness of who you are and the gentleness with which she approaches everyone. Here's an interesting thing. Today I flew Southwest Airline, and everyone I met, I said, I'm going to do this little presentation tonight, and I'm talking about Colleen. I said, what should I say about her greatest leadership gifts, etc.? And every single person said, she's like our mom. She takes care of us, but she's like the mom you need to have, not like a functional mom, which is always, anyway. But what they were meaning was, she looks out for you, but she speaks her truth. I mean, she wants you to be successful, and she's going to do everything she can to help you be successful. So what I want to share is that I think that Colleen has taught me that you, as a leader, you really need to trust yourself, your wisdom. I think the other thing she taught was really be other-focused, and I'll give you a quick story about that, and really validate people's worth. So trust yourself and your wisdom, be real, but really important is to be other focused. Let me give you a quick story about that. We had one of our early on our graduation dinners, and what we do at graduation with the executive MBA is we go around the table. You know, there's probably 8 students at a table, and then we go around, you know, where everyone's just talking, having dinner, and then there's sort of an after dinner, everyone's sharing little bits of, you know, Ken and me and the dean were saying, you know, what we love about, you know, the cohort, some of the things they learn. Well, about halfway through, Colleen jumps up and she says, I just have to tell you about my table. She says, you can't believe the people I had dinner with. And literally, she had just had dinner with these people. She knew something about every single, she said their name. I mean, she basically pointed to every single person around the table. She knew their name. She goes, you know, Sherry has 2 kids. Do you know what her kids are doing? And do you know what Sherry's doing? She's starting her own nonprofit. I mean, she went into every single person. So what's the leadership moral there? Is to slow down, to notice people. Another example of that is at Ken's 70th birthday party. She met my husband, Rick. Every time she sees me from that point on, she's like, how's Rick? How's that handsome guy? Very incredible how much she remembers about people, about who people want to be and what they want to do. One of the things she says that I think is so important is she says, people admire you for your gifts, but they love you for your vulnerabilities. And I think that, and Stephen, you just talked about embracing the struggle. I think she is so clear when they're struggling as an organization, and she was so clear to throw it out to the organization. We're struggling. We need this. I think leaders have to take that to heart instead of kind of trying to hide things that aren't going well. Throw it out there so you get the whole organization on your team. So what is the great opportunity she gave me? Was the opportunity really to love the people I work with and celebrate that. I was on the phone at my mom's last weekend, and I told her I'd had a business call at 10. But when I hung up the call, she said, you said you had a business call. I go, well, what do you mean? And she said, you were having so much fun. And she said, yeah. And I'm like, well, that's because I love these people. And I think that's the gift, speaking of Colleen, is just to lead with love. And I am so grateful that I got that tip. So I get to love the people I work with and, you know, help them claim their leadership potential. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Vicki. Wow. There's so much amazing energy on this call, and I'm so grateful to each of you for sharing your stories. And I have only met Vicki once, but I can see already that she lives out those principles as well. We next up have Jennifer Kahnweiler, who I had the pleasure of actually meeting last week. And Jennifer is a certified speaking professional. She's an executive coach, and she is a champion for introverts. And she's the author of 2 books, The Introverted Leader, Building on Your Quiet Strength, and the newly released Quiet Influence, The Introvert's Guide to Making a Difference. Jennifer, we're so pleased to have you with us tonight and excited to hear your story of how someone opened a door of opportunity for you.
Hi, thank you, everybody. I'm still like into Vicki's talk and smiling here, and so I'm smiling as I look at this picture of a person who's influenced me, and I know all the great people who are on this call, and that is Steve Prasanti. And for those of you who may not know, Steve is the president and publisher of the publishing company that is near and dear to all of our hearts, and that's Barrett Kohler. Steve and I started working together about 2007. When I submitted my proposal to Barrett Kohler, not knowing what would happen, and it was a topic that people weren't talking about a lot back then, and that was introverts in the workplace. I had a lot of passion about exploring this and sharing the message that introverts can be leaders. Well, I guess I was, as fate would have it, it landed in the desk of a wonderful person named Steve Prasanti, who is actually an introverted leader himself. And the true gift for me through the experience of working with Steve on both my books is that I truly experienced the impact of introverted leadership, while I was writing about it. Steve's demeanor, some of the characteristics that I experienced with him, his calmness, his low-key demeanor, in particular his depth of thinking, nailing the key point that you need to just make that shift in the book so it takes the right turn. What we all laugh about is like, what's the big idea? I got a little tired of sometimes hearing that. But the other key, and I guess if we can turn to the next slide, I don't know if that's on there, Becky, but there's an idea of introverts. One of the qualities they do very well is that they prepare. Yet I have the 4 Ps that Steve helped me develop as well. But boy, was that guy prepared. And I'll share a story that I thought of today, and that is on our first editorial phone call to review the proposal. I was sitting there, and I thought I was prepared. I knew a lot about the topic, and I should say I'm an extrovert, which a lot of people are surprised about. But I'm real good at winging things. But boy, was I in for a surprise. Steve told me what he liked, and he asked some very gentle, provocative questions that really, really challenged my assumptions. And the message that I got from this tremendous leader who I consider Steve is that this is good, but we can make it better. He didn't say that, but that's what I got. And so I knew ending that first call with him that I really needed to up my game. Fortunately, I had taped the call. I had audio taped it, and I found myself listening to the tape over and over again in the car. And he cut to the heart of what I needed to do. He had some action steps, that gentle sort of thinking through and shifting my paradigm of how I was looking at the topic really pushed me to some new depths. And our discussions continued along that through the course of what I would call the introverted leader's birth. It was painful at times. In fact, I remember calling Bill Treasurer, who wrote this terrific book, Leaders Open Doors, and I don't know if Bill remembers this, but I said, boy, Bill, he's really serious. Steve is serious. I'm learning a lot. I feel like I'm back in grad school, and I feel like I'm really pushing myself into my better self, and my writing voice is coming out in true ways from this guy who's not saying much, but he's really saying what's essential. And Bill said, just wait. You'll see. You'll get to know him, and you'll see the kind of looser side of Steve. Well, as we've worked together now over these few years, I think he's loosened up with me. I've loosened up with him, and we've really become a partnership. And to me, what's so meaningful about that is because I'm always talking with people about introverts and extroverts and our different temperaments. And I think we're a good microcosm of how, I can think through things. I can be more conscious about my preparation, and it's really transformed me in terms of how I work, how I deal with my clients. I take time. I'm not rushing around as much. The other P that we talk about is presence, being in the moment. He was always with me when he was with me, and he continues to be because of that incredible preparation that he did for every one of our meetings. So I really consider that we're a microcosm of how different styles can really bring out the best in each other. And the last thing I'll say in this is, Steve has helped me get this message out into a world that's really ready for this now. The rise of the introverts, we're hearing it all over. Well, I thank him from the bottom of my heart. I'm so grateful that, I was able to craft my message in a way that I'm so proud of, and it's opened so many doors up for me to continue to have those dialogues and have people touch me and me touch them. So, and I've shared this with him a number of times. And by the way, when I see him now, we laugh together. So it's a little bit different than those early days because I think, have mutual respect. And I can't express as much gratitude as I feel. So thank you guys so much, and Bill especially, for putting this forum together. It means a lot to me to be among all of you terrific people. So thank you.
Jennifer, thanks so much. I'm pleased to introduce next Chip Bell. Chip is a senior partner with the Chip Bell Group. He's a consultant, a trainer, and a speaker to a number of major organizations, and he's the author and co-author of 19 books, including most recently Managers as Mentors, which he co-authored with Marshall Goldsmith. Chip is not an introvert, I'm going to say, and I'm going to welcome you now, Chip. Another reminder about the hashtag Tonight Lead Simple and Chip's Twitter handle Chip R. Bell. So welcome, Chip.
Thanks, Becky. Thanks, Bill. What a fun time. I love the fact that it's called Fest, because Fest in Danish, I think, means party. So this is a fun leadership party. Bill, I have found a new twist on opening doors. You started your book with Ian and the whole idea of opening doors, and I found a new idea that's going to kind of set up what I want to talk about tonight. some of us are blessed with daughters and granddaughters in our lives. I have 3 granddaughters, and my youngest granddaughter is Cassie, and Cassie's 5. And I'll tell you, if you get on an elevator with a 5-year-old girl, I'll tell you what's going to happen. She's going to say something like, Chippy, hold me up so I can punch 15. Now, there's 2 aspects that are important about that. One is she wants to make the point that I can do it myself, and the other point is I know my numbers. And so that sets up what I want to talk about, and that's an individual, Lynn Nadler. I had the wonderful opportunity early in my career, my first real job after I had worked for a while, to get a chance to get a sabbatical to go do a doctorate at George Washington University. And I wanted to go to GW because there were several classic people, great in the field, who were on the faculty there, Gordon Lippett and Jerry Harvey and Peter Vail and Leonard Nadler. And it was an exciting time, and I had much to learn in this particular program. And I had 6 courses my first year in the doctoral program under Lynn Nadler. And each of those courses, during the introduction, he would say, one of your assignments is to write a paper, 2,000 to 2,500 words, and you are to write it as if it's going to be submitted for an article in a major publication in the field. And if you get an A on your paper, I will work with you to make sure your article gets published. I had 6 articles my first year that were published in a variety of professional journals, which sort of launched my writing and whole enthusiasm about writing. But one of the things I remember about Lynn was I wrote a piece that he gave me an A on, and at that time I was totally infatuated by the world of power tactics. There was a great book out called Power, How to Get It, How to Use It, and the whole idea of Machiavelli and using manipulation. And I wrote an article called The Trainer as Machiavelli. And so when I got my A, I said, well, I need your help in getting this published. And he said, I'll help you get it published, but I want you to think about, is this what you want to be known for? And I did get it published in Training and Development Journal, now T&D Magazine Journal. But he caused me to think a lot about what is I want to be known for, and it was certainly not focusing on power tactics. My second year under him, he had one opportunity to present, be on the faculty of the Advanced Training Institute, and he invited me to co-facilitate with him. It was such a wonderful opportunity that he opened this door for me that the following year, I not only got to be solo as a faculty member, but I got to co-design the entire conference with Warren Bennett, another great leader in the field of leadership. Lynn did a lot for me, and in that second year, in my doctoral program, he came to me and said, I want to work on a new book, and I'd like you to write it with me. The book you see on the screen is the book he and I wrote together. Clients and Consulting, Meeting and Exceeding Expectations. It was my first book, and as Becky said, 19 books later, I owe it to him who got my interest and excitement and enthusiasm about not only the fact that I wanted to do it myself and could do it myself, but I knew my numbers. I had the capacity and the ability to do it, like Kathy knows her numbers when she punches the button. We worked on this book together, and it was, again, launched my career. The last slide is Colonel Jack Hamilton, and he was my commanding officer in Vietnam. I only served under Jack for a short period of time because he and I both got wounded in a firefight. He got badly wounded and had to go home, and I got a chance to remain. But he was a true warrior in the fullest sense of the word, and I learned the importance and power of being a warrior. And he had a saying that became a code in my own organization. We don't do tired, we don't do late, and we don't do average. So I've learned a lot from these 2 individuals.
Thanks, Chip. I am pleased right now to introduce Bill Treasure, and I'm not sure how, since this was he initiated this Leadership Opportunity Fest and invited us all to join, that somehow at the beginning of this call I failed to introduce him. But Bill has founded a company called Giant Leap Consulting, and he's the author of 3 books. And let's see if I can get all the titles right since they're not on the screen for me. The newest book is Leaders Open Doors, which launched this year. He also wrote the book Courage Goes to Work, and the third book is Right Risk. Okay, so I think I got them all. And Bill is the father of 3 wonderful children. And one of the things that I want to remind everybody about tonight's call is that Bill decided that he was going to donate $2 for every person who attended this webinar to the March of Dimes in Atlanta. And I am actually looking at a check that Bill has written to the March of Dimes to benefit kids with disabilities, and it's addressed and stamped for $500. So I just love the way that Bill is using his new book as a way to open doors of opportunities for others, especially kids with special needs. So it's just my extreme pleasure to be able to work alongside Bill tonight and all the time. So I'm going to mute myself and unmute Bill so we can have good sound quality.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, everybody. I have just so enjoyed this webinar so far, and just listening to all the stories from people I admire so much. I've just been soaking it in, and I hope that you have as well. The picture you see on the screen here is part of my story, and this is not a picture of me. This is Heinz Brannon. And Heinz was a managing partner at Accenture when I worked there. I've spent 6 years there in their human performance and change management practice. And Heinz was the head of the communications and technology group within Accenture throughout the United States. And he was very, very well respected. And I had the very good fortune of reporting directly to Heinz. Now, I had come out of graduate school, and I had certain ideals about what leadership should be and such. And I'd never really worked with a real leader. And when I worked with Heinz, he came as close as anybody I've ever met to living the ideals of all of those books that I read in graduate school from all of the great leaders that you've already heard about today on the webinar. Heinz was, he still is, a mentor to me. And he gave me a piece of critical feedback that opened a door to myself that gave me permission to act and behave in a different way. Now, what he said to me stung. Gandhi once said, "The truth only hurts if it should." And the feedback that he gave me hurt. But it was hurt in a good way, and he gave me the feedback because he cared about me. He had the courage to tell me something that nobody else had had the courage to tell me up until that point. During a performance review, he said, "Bill, there's some additional feedback I want to give you. And I know it's going to sting a little bit, but I'm telling you because I'm just starting to see it now in your young 30s, and I'm afraid that it's going to follow you throughout your career unless you do something about it." Now, I think there's plenty you can do about it, and I think ultimately there's a good message for me to tell you. But what I want you to know is, and here's the words that he said to me. He said, "Bill, you're starting to become a brown-noser." Oh, it stung. He said, "I'm starting to become a brown-noser." In other words, and this is what he said to follow on to that, he said, "Bill, you don't have to laugh at my jokes harder than they are funny in order to get ahead. Ultimately, that's manipulation, and frankly, it's dishonest." And then he said something that made all the difference. He said, "Bill, you're a smart guy. You're a clever guy. You don't have to laugh at people's jokes harder than they are funny to get ahead. Rely on your intuition, rely on your imagination, rely on your cleverness and wit, and you'll go really far. Trust in yourself." It was a great message because ultimately what he did is what many open-door leaders do. He gave me permission to experience a personal transformation. He told me something that was courageous that other people had avoided telling me. He held a mirror up to me so that I could see myself. I knew there was truth to what he was saying because I had heard earlier from other people that they thought I was a people pleaser, but I never felt it the way that he had said it. I thought I was being schmoozy and somehow that was good to my career. He gave me permission to be my true self, the self that I wanted to become, not this sort of schmoozy, inauthentic person, but he gave me the chance to step into authenticity. And he helped me hold myself to a higher standard. He helped me hold myself to a higher standard and higher way of being, a more authentic way of being. Ultimately, he opened a door that helped me transform myself because it helped me write with more muscle. It helped me assert myself more candidly. It helped me be more truthful to people. It helped me assert my opinions. And I think that it made a big difference to me as a writer. It made a big difference to me as a consultant. And ultimately, I think that that's what open door leaders do. is they open a door often to an opportunity. You heard so many of that from our speakers today. But he opened a door for me to see myself and experience myself in a bigger, better way and hold myself to a higher standard. And I'm so thankful for him and the impact that he had on my career. I'm grateful that I was able to, I dedicated Leaders Open Doors to 5 leaders who made a big impact on me throughout the course of my career and life. And Heinz Brannon was one of those people that was included in that dedication. We are going to switch now. We're going to open it up to you. And we really want to hear from you. We know that there's plenty of folks that have been waiting with questions. We've gotten some questions that have dropped in along the way. I want to start, as we turn now to the questions, to once again thank all of the great webinar co-hosts with me, Chip Bell and Jennifer Kahnweiler and Steve Schneider and Vicki Halsey and Jesse Stoner. What a pleasure to be with you all. And now we're going to be hearing from the folks that have been listening on the webinar so that we can respond to your questions. So let's go ahead and have some courage and open it up, and I'll turn it back over to Becky.
Thank you, Bill. So I want to just take a moment and recognize where some of you called in from because I asked that at the beginning. We have callers from Michigan. We have some callers in Atlanta, Seattle, California, Houston, Mumbai, India, Oregon, South Carolina, New Jersey, Mexico. So we have callers from a lot of different places, and we're thrilled to have you. There are 2 different ways you can participate in the Q&A with our fabulous authors tonight. You can raise your hand. There's on your GoToWebinar screen, you should have a chance to raise your hand. If you do that, I can open up your line and you can speak directly to any one of the authors that are on the line tonight, or you can use the question panel where you typed in your city. I see someone is from New York. Way to go, New York. So we would love to have any questions that you have for any of these authors about the stories that they shared or about their experiences or about leadership in general. And we would love to see your questions. So looking for raised hands or looking for questions in the chat window. I'm also going to, just for a second, let our speakers talk to each other a bit. I'm going to open up Chip's line and Jennifer's line. And Jesse, if you want to unmute yourself, and Stephen, you're unmuted. If any of the callers that were part of the call tonight want to speak to each other or comment on each other's stories, I'll let you do that right now while we wait for questions from our audience.
This is Jesse. I just wanted to say, Bill, I didn't realize you were making that donation. And you actually are an open door leader. I mean, not only are you writing about it, but you opened the door by inviting all of us, and you also have opened doors by donating royalties to your book as well as for this webinar. And, you know, you're a wonderful model, and I feel very grateful for that.
Jesse, Bill's audio is muted, but he's blushing
he can hear me.
and smiling. He can hear you. I have a couple questions that have come in. I will let everybody else who's on the line comment in a second. Bruce is asking a question for any of you authors. How did you respond when the door that was open reflected what you felt were shortcomings in your skills or abilities? And Bill, if you want to talk, just let me know, and I'll unmute you. But to repeat the question, how did you respond when there was an open door that kind of reflected what you felt were shortcomings in your skills or abilities? And Vicki would like to talk. So we're going to...
So it was funny when I was listening to Jennifer's story about Steve, when we took the Hamster Revolution, our first book with Mike Song and Tim Burress, when we took the first story, he basically blew it out of the water. Like, it was like, that's the worst idea I've ever heard, not going to sell at all. And we were like, we thought it was the best idea that had ever, you know, gone into the world of books. And literally we hung up the call and we look at each other, we're just like, well, that was ugly. And we, you know, licked our wounds for maybe an hour, and they were like, all right, what did he say? Let's do this, and literally regroup. But I think you have to acknowledge the pain, and then you can move past it, because he was just the best advice ever. So it made the book. Anyone else have any thoughts?
I would agree. Vicki, I would agree with you since we're talking about the same leader. And I think for me, it's the respect. I mean, I didn't always agree with what Steve said, but using that debriefing kind of not responding, not reacting, and knowing that I ultimately respected his experience. I think with a leader like that, I tend to give them a lot more credence and will take it more seriously, even though I don't agree with everything. In the end, they're typically right.
Oh, it was fabulous.
I remember my first book with Bear Color, and the first set of manuscript I sent over to Steve, I called, and we were scheduled to talk about his reaction. And I said, well, Steve, and I'm all excited, all anticipating him saying wonderful words. What did you think? And he said the most horrible words he could have said to me. Well, Chip, I'd say it's sort of average. And that was not a good thing for me to hear. And so I immediately, had to go dig deep and find out, so what is it about it? And it led to a very soul-searching kind of effort, because basically what he was trying to say is there's a lot more to this than you're reflecting. You got to dig a lot deeper.
Yeah,
great feedback.
That was a rave review compared to what we got.
So I'm going to actually open up the line for Angela, who has something to share with the group. Angela, welcome. I'm trying to unmute you.
Very much. I'm very excited to be here. I have to say that I have noticed a trend. I got my PhD a year ago in May, and up until that point, there was only like one person who really pushed me along, and I'll get to that in a second. But I seem to have noticed a trend that more and more we see people helping people. I grew up in kind of a dog-eat-dog culture, so I never really had those mentors or those people helping me. But I have to give most of the credit for my success so far. The big helper in my life has actually been my husband of 35 years. He pushed me to get my PhD, and I fought it every step of the way. And getting that piece of paper opened so many doors for me, and I find myself now able to do a lot of projects that are fulfilling, and I feel like I can really make an impact. It's been wonderful. So not someone famous, not someone anyone else would know, but I think people open doors for us all the time, and we have to recognize that sometimes it's the people who are right next to us. And I have to say thank you, my dear sweet husband. He has really opened doors by pushing me to get that PhD.
That's a wonderful story. I think that probably most of the leaders on the call could speak to that. Chip, how about you?
Absolutely. I would agree, especially related to our life partners and the role they play in our lives and our growth. I've been fortunate to have been married a long, long time, most of this century, and I couldn't do what I've done without that love and concern, and it's the unconditional love, I think, in many ways that frees us, and that's, to me, what I heard from several of us tonight, is that leaders who lead in a way that reflects that sense of grace or unconditional love are those that can bring out the most in others.
Absolutely.
Jennifer, I was just going to agree with you, but I was also going to add that what I've noticed with those amazing leaders is that they push themselves as well. They don't ask any less of themselves. I wonder if the other panelists think that as well, that you see them stretching and growing, and it's not just about pushing us.
Would any of you like to speak to that?
Well, I think part of being a great leader is being a great role model. And Rosabeth Kanter at Harvard said, leaders are more powerful role models when they learn than when they teach. Mm-hmm. And I think that's true of all leaders, this quest for learning and pushing themselves to the same standard they would expect of those that they count as their followers.
And this is Jessie. I'd like to just add to that point about the motivation also, because what you were saying about leading from the heart, Chip, and that the unconditional love. I think most of us here are familiar with Steve Piersanti since he was all of our publishers. And the one thing about Steve, and you were telling stories about how he gave really tough feedback, the one thing that Steve told me is that he loves to say no because he knows that people are going to grow when he does. And it's his goal is that even if he turns down a publication, that people are going to walk away in a better position, more knowledgeable, and more able to do what it is that they want to do in the future. So it's not just a matter of saying no, but it's where are they coming from and what's the motivation behind it that's so important.
That's a really powerful observation. I have another question for all of you, and this question is addressed to all of you. So the caller is wondering, does your lovely experiences of having people open doors for you make you more of a door opener for others, and how has this played out for you?
I would agree. I think it does, because I think you've experienced the benefit of someone opening the door for you, and we want to reciprocate by doing that from someone else. So I think it triggers a generosity that is infectious.
Yeah. This is Stephen, and I'll chime in as well. I was very fortunate to have a door open more recently with Bill George, who became a mentor, and I found myself, and Bill was very gracious to write the foreword for my book. Bill, of course, the former CEO of Medtronic and the author of True North. And I found myself, after Bill George's generosity for mentorship, I found myself much more receptive to other people who came to me for mentors, just recognizing that you need to pass it along.
Yeah, this is Bill Treasurer, and I agree with both sentiments from Chip and Steve, and my answer would be yes. I think that because I've experienced so many open doors that, now I like to believe that I'm opening more doors than I had in the past. 100% of the royalties of the new book is designed to do just that, to open doors of opportunities for others. But let me tell you something. I'm not a person who came to understand their goodness without struggle. My goodness came to me via my badness. I've done lots of bad things. I've been an envious person. I've been a stingy person. I've been a jealous person, and I've been an ungenerous. I've been a selfish person. And through the goodness of watching other people open doors for me when I didn't deserve it, I slowly came to finally the recognition that I needed to be a better and a more decent person, and I've been so impacted by people who made such a difference to me that I like to believe that I've made some headway in terms of my selfishness and envy and jealousness and such. I think that those exist within me, but I've learned that when you're generous, when you're giving, when you're kind, when you're compassionate, when you open doors for others, internally, you're in a more centered place, and you're a better human being, and you can live with yourself. At the end of the day, you got to live within your own skin, and following the lead of other people towards goodness has made a big difference for me.
That's well said, Bill.
Thanks so much, Bill. So we just have a few minutes left, and I'm actually a huge fan of this question that came in a while ago. It came in from Brett, and he's asking, what is the value of a leader using social media? And I love that question because I'm a huge fan of social media. But I'm going to let all of you on the call have a chance to answer that question.
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is that through social media, it enables you to connect with far more people than you might otherwise. The word of mouth is 5 to 10 times the word of mouth, and so its reach, I think, would be one important asset for a leader.
Yeah, and I would add to that.
This is Jessie. Somebody on social media named Brett opened a door for me early on when I was just starting social media, hadn't started my blog yet, and he said to me, don't worry about the shape of it and what it looks like. It's the content that's important. Start blogging. And it was that encouragement that really got me over the hump and got me out there doing it. So that was social media that just pushed me right out to somebody I met through Twitter, actually.
Social media allows people to see us beyond just our name and our status and our title, but it gives them a peek into who we are as people. And also, it gives us tremendous credibility with younger folks who really kind of discount us if we're not on there. So it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd share is really, I think people want to connect with people. You know, we're more and more isolated, more and more people are working from home, and I really think people want to get to know you, and they want to feel like you know them. And even, I'm just amazed, just a little like, someone's like, oh, I just loved it when you liked my, it was like, wow, that took a nanosecond, but it really does connect people with other people and what's really important to people. And I think that's the gift, is it's social, and people are sometimes missing that socialness of, you know, with leaders, with others, with each other.
So we only have a couple minutes left, but I have one more question. This is a question that came in for Jennifer. Jennifer Berry would like to know what an extrovert could gain by reading The Introverted Leader or Quiet Influence, your newest book.
Well, they'll get an understanding of what it's like to walk on the other side. And believe me, their introverted teammates, bosses, and direct reports will be very grateful that they've taken the step to do that.
Okay. Sure. Just a quick reminder, because I must, about the books represented by the authors who are on the call tonight. Bill Treasurer's most recent book is Leaders Open Doors. Jennifer Kahnweiler's most recent book is Quiet Influence. Chip Bell has Managers as Mentors, co-authored with Marshall Goldsmith. Jesse Stoner's book, I'm going to come back to in a second. Stephen Snyder is Leadership in the Art of Struggle. Vicki Halsey is Brilliance by Design. And back to Jesse's book, and it has the word vision in it. And full steam ahead. Thank you. I don't know how I missed that. I also wanted to let all of you know that Barrett Kohler is generously going to be sending out an email probably tomorrow morning with a 30% discount on any of the Barrett Kohler titles that were featured in tonight's webinar, just as a thank you to all of you who have been on this call. I'm personally just in awe that I'm connected to this amazing group of people. And just to go back to the question about social media, I would not be connected to any of these folks if it weren't for social media, and I love the way that social media does give us the power to connect, to learn from folks who are so brilliant. And so thank you so much for being a part of tonight's webinar. And you can connect with all these folks on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and I'm sure all of them would be thrilled to hear from you. So thanks so much for being with us tonight.